Democratic Party has failed. And I think the 2024 presidential election really kind of sounds the alarm for that, but it was coming. But I want to explain to you why the Democratic Party has failed. And I don't even know if there's a comeback for the Democratic Party, but I want to explain to you why it has failed. And we're going to go through two phases. The first phase is going to be the blackface in high place. And the second phase is going to be how the Democrats did not take tips from what the Republican Party was doing that actually worked. Let's start with the first one. The Democratic Party knows that they can not win without the black vote. They need the black vote in order to win. But over the years, I found that I think Democrats started to pay attention to the fact that black voters were starting to actually ask for something. Uh-oh. Thought they were just fine not being Republicans. And so the Democratic Party decided that they had to do something to ensure that black voters would remain in the Democratic Party, and also that younger black voters eventually would come towards the Democratic Party. In other words, trying to find ways to increase the black voter base. And that's where the black faces and high places come in. And I don't think there was anyone who did this better than Barack Obama. Barack Obama, he was able to really garner the black vote. Barack Obama has the highest support from black voters than any other president that I've seen in my lifetime. Joe Biden doesn't have the number of black votes as Obama. Obama first election term, it says he has 98% of the black vote. Hillary Clinton didn't accomplish that, and Kamala Harris didn't accomplish that. So it all started with this guy. Remember this guy? Remember how he told you, yes, we can?
Told we're not ready, or that we shouldn't try, or that we can't. Generations of Americans have responded with a simple creed that sums up the spirit of a people. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
But there was just one problem. We didn't. Barack Obama was the first black face in high place with the Democratic Party that really captured my attention. And during that time, I was very excited about Barack Obama. I really believed, yes, we can. I really believed in hope and change. This phase for the Democratic Party in 2008, it worked very, very well. But there was just one problem. Barack Obama didn't actually want to change anything. Barack Obama didn't actually implement or care to implement policy that would greatly improve the lives of Black Americans or working class white Americans either. Barack Obama ran on what we would call a lighter version of a Bernie Sanders campaign package. He also supported healthcare for everyone. In other words, he kind of ran on a populist message, and that's what attracted a lot of people. But once Barack Obama won, he turned out to be just like all the ones that came before him. He was bowing down to Wall Street, corporate America, military-industrial complex. When Barack Obama was running, he said that we need to stop these conflicts in the Middle East. But during his presidency, he continued to bomb brown people in the Middle East and Africa and abroad. Barack Obama was very charismatic. A lot of people liked him. He got the youth vote. He got the black vote. For the Democratic Party, he was a gem. But things changed. And I would say that it is because of the disappointment of Barack Obama that this is the reason why the Democratic Party is struggling to hang on today, not just with Black voters, but with their base in general. Remember this? This was Barack Obama and John McCain discussing health care.
Quick discussion. Is health care in America a privilege, a right, or a responsibility? Privilege, right, and responsibility.
Well,
Start with that.
I think it should be a right for every American. In a country as wealthy as ours, for us to have people who are going bankrupt because they can't pay their medical bills. For my mother to die of cancer at the age of 53 and have to spend the last months of her life in a hospital room arguing with insurance companies because they're saying that this may be a pre-existing condition and they don't have to pay her treatment, there's something fundamentally wrong about that.
Ah, yes. He said all the right things, but in practice, he was just like those who came before him. And now Barack Obama did, accomplish Obamacare, but that was actually from Romney Care, which we had here in Massachusetts. It was a Heritage Foundation project. Mitt Romney had Romney Care here in Massachusetts, and Barack Obama took that and made it Obamacare. So for all the people who talk about the Heritage Foundation, you need to know that's where Obamacare actually came from. So while he told you during that debate that we needed healthcare for everyone, when it came push to shove, you got Obamacare instead. I would say it is Barack Obama that honestly is the reason why more Black people have left the Democratic Party. And there's many of us that you can talk to, and we will tell you just how excited we were about him. And then how we were just like, yeah, I don't really know, bruh. Don't really know. And that's sad. And that's sad because when Obama was in office, I want to remind you the way that he spoke to Black people, in particular at the Congressional Black Caucus. Remember this? Obama tells the CBC to stop crying. Listen to this.
I have time to feel sorry for myself. I don't have time to complain. I'm going to press on. I expect all of you to march with me and press on. Take off your bedroom slippers. Put on your marching shoes. Shake it off. Stop complaining. Stop grumbling. Stop crying. We are going to press on. We've got work to do.
So what I found to be pretty interesting is that he said, take off your bedroom slippers. Now, that was Barack Obama speaking to the Congressional Black Caucus. Would Barack Obama say that at an AIPAC conference? If Barack Obama went to an AIPAC convention, do you think he would stand up there at that podium in front of all those Zionists and tell them to take off their slippers and tell them that they got work to do? You see, this is the failed project here. The Black faces in high spaces, high places, Black faces in high places. Because here's the thing. What the Democratic Party did is they said, well, Black people are asking for something, so we have to put people in these positions that look like them. So again, like I said, first one I remember was Barack Obama. But the problem that comes from that is that those people who are supposed to represent Black voters don't actually really do anything for Black voters. Meanwhile, under Barack Obama's presidency, there were even more reparations that were given to Holocaust survivors. Did you guys know that? Look it up. All of the things that were done. And they believed that all they had to do was give Black voters representation, and that will keep them in the party. So for me, that began with Barack Obama. Then they moved on to some of these congressional seats. In comes Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem Jeffries, they tried to sell him to you in so many different ways as he's supposed to be the next Obama. At least that's what Dem leadership wants. Remember this? The moment that Hakeem Jeffries got the speakership for the House? Listen to this.
It's an honor to stand before you today.
Democrats on Wednesday unanimously elected Hakeem Jeffries to serve as the party's top leader in the House of Representatives, replacing Nancy Pelosi to become the first Black American to hold such a high-ranking position in Congress. At a news conference, the 52-year-old New Yorker acknowledged his 82-year-old predecessor, who in 2007 was the first woman to be elected House Speaker.
I also want to convey my thanks to Speaker Nancy Pelosi, an extraordinary speaker for the ages.
So do you notice what they do? First Black American Speaker of the House. And this is how they get us. And this is how they've been able to, I would say, trick some of us to continue to support the Democratic Party, even though they give us no tangibles. And over the years, I started to notice that other groups were demanding tangibles from the Democratic Party. And some of those groups were actually receiving them. The Dreamers had demands for the Obama administration. They got their demands met. Jewish Americans had demands. They get their demands met. But Black voters don't. And yet we're still beholding to this party. Now we have switched to Hakeem Jeffries to prove a point. Some of you may be wondering, well, where do they get these Black faces in high places from? Oftentimes, they start recruiting them in college. Some of them maybe even high school. And oftentimes, they have a tendency to seek them out of activist spaces. And that's exactly where they spotted Hakeem Jeffries. In fact, some of you may have seen this before if you saw my deep dive about how Hakeem Jeffries actually won that seat. But this is a picture here of Hakeem Jeffries when he was in college at Binghamton. And look at what he's wearing. Let me scroll down. This is him right here to the right. Mr. Jeffries, 1992 news conference held by the Black Student Union of Binghamton University. Hakeem Jeffries is wearing a dashiki and has a little high top fade thing going on. What the Democratic Party does is that they seek out Black activists, particularly a lot of times when they are in college, that are well-spoken, as they like to say, possibly interested in law, because that helps, especially if you want to go into Congress. Someone that also can connect with the community. Hakeem Jeffries was perfect for them. They take Black activists out of the activist space. They take off their dashiki, give them a suit and a haircut, and they mold them into what they want them to be. That's also what happened with Barack Obama. Barack Obama actually was a pro-Palestinian activist back in the day. AIPAC got a hold of him, told him to get rid of the fro, gave him a suit, and molded him into what they wanted him to be. And these are the people that they put in front of you and they tell you represents you. There is something very interesting that I have to mention about Hakeem Jeffries. When Hakeem Jeffries was running for that congressional seat, he was losing. He was losing in the polls to a gentleman by the name of Charles Barron. Charles Barron is a Black Panther, goes way back, pro-Palestinian activist. Charles Barron was beating Hakeem Jeffries in the polls. So here's what I believe happened behind the scenes. Obviously, the Democratic Party did not want someone like Charles Barron, who's a Black Panther and was pro-Palestinian movement. They did not want him in a congressional seat. That wouldn't be good for Israel. So the next thing you know, all of a sudden, David Duke, white supremacist David Duke, gives an endorsement to Charles Barron. Sound familiar? It should. He did the same thing last year to Jill Stein. I have firmly believed that David Duke has been acting as an operative for the Democratic Party to keep these types of voices out of politics. After that endorsement from David Duke, Charles Barron sank in the polls. Hakeem Jeffries rose in those polls, got into bed with AIPAC. They were behind him all the way. And that's how Hakeem Jeffries won that seat. And I'm saying this to you because I want to not discourage you, but I do want to warn you about something. Everything you see right now that's happening with Zoran Mandami, don't be surprised if something like this happens to him. Now, again, according to the polls, it looks like he's probably going to win, but don't be surprised if that happens. So they take Black people a lot of times from the activist spaces, they mold them into what they want them to be, but they let them say a little bit of radical, rhetoric to make you think that they really want change, but they're not going to advocate for any change, especially not for you. AIPAC gets a hold of them. They make sure that their number one priority is going to be Israel and only Israel. You, meanwhile, think that they're going to go in and do something for you, but they're not. That's all a facade. Something, though, has started to change. Since Barack Obama, Black voters are waking up. I really do believe that's part of the reason. When I look at the exit polls, let's keep it real. Kamala Harris did not receive as many Black votes as Hillary, Biden, or Obama. She received the lowest amount of Black voter support. So not only are Black people leaving the Democratic Party, Black people are registering as independents. Some may have registered as Republican. I ain't heard too many that did that, so let's not go that far. But the reality is a number of Black people stayed home. That's what happens when you fool us and try to trick us into, we're going to help you and we're going to do this and I hear you and I understand you all these years. And we watch you sit back and you help do everything for Israel, everything for other groups, but nothing for us, and just tell us, well, I'm not going to only do something for you. That's the first phase. Here's another reason why the Democratic Party has failed. And yes, this has to deal with Charlie Kirk too. And some people aren't going to want to hear this, but you probably should listen up. One thing I will say is this. The Republican Party did something smart. I can acknowledge when someone did something smart, whether I agree with them or not. You know what they did? They realized that the youth vote actually matters. What do you know? You see, Charlie Kirk, from what I understand, started Turning Point USA when he was like 18 years old, going to different colleges, talking to the youth, the young people, try to get them to, vote in the Republican Party. Who does that for the Democratic Party? Hello? Who goes around the country visiting colleges, talking to college students to recruit them for the Democratic Party, even when it's not election season? Who does that? I'll wait. No one that I know of. You see, I'm a firm believer in beating people at their own game. So if I see that my competition is doing something, I look at it and I weigh the pros and cons and I say, hey, maybe that's something we should have been doing, whether I like them or agree with them or not. But the Democratic Party made it very clear that young voters were not their priority. If we were, or if they were, I guess I'm not really a young voter anymore, if they were really their priority in 2016, they wouldn't have given Bernie Sanders primary votes to Hillary Clinton. Hello. The Democratic Party, all these years that Charlie Kirk at Turning Point USA was going across the country to get votes and build up the Republican Party and to get the youth to come out and support. All these years, the Democratic Party never offered a left alternative to Charlie Kirk. And there's a reason why. I talked to my comrade, JB Font, about this. You know what JB said? And he's right. He said, well, no, they're not going to do that. because then that means that they would actually have to run on those left positions, and then they would be held accountable for it. They would actually have to deliver. Because here's the thing. If you have someone that's like a Charlie Kirk of the left going across the country to go to different colleges to try to recruit people for the Democratic Party, well, when you show up saying things like, Joe Biden's the best. Joe Biden is so cool, man. Yeah, dude, he totally rocks, like Harry Sisson did. You realize in particular, that doesn't really resonate. What resonates with a lot of younger people that are more likely to vote Democrat but doesn't feel the party is far enough are those populist policies. It's things like canceling student debt, health care for everyone, helping young people find a way to get homes, things like that. I don't know, not being evicted, that kind of shit. That's what resonates with a lot of the younger people. And they never did that. And so they left that lane wide open. And Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA went and filled that lane because there was nobody else on the other side doing it. But here's my thing. All these years later, they still didn't try to do that. It's almost as if they don't really want to win. Because at the end of the day, they want to fundraise. So there is the closest thing that came to that, I would say, is Justice Democrats, which was created by Cenk Uygur and Kyle Kulinski. But that was a little bit different because that was to get candidates elected to fight against the Dem leadership and the establishment in the Democratic Party, not to go along with it. The Republican Party got behind Charlie Kirk. The Democratic Party did not get behind Justice Democrats. Why would they? They're trying to challenge us. Why would we accept them? When we look at the podcast spaces, not only did Charlie Kirk have a podcast and also was out there on the ground, and you look at all the people who actually agree with those progressive policies and support them and promote them and that populist message that have millions of subscribers. How many of those people go tour across the campuses to deliver that message to students? Does everybody see the problem? Yes, you can reach a lot of people with your podcast. But here's the thing. Everybody doesn't watch YouTube. And some people aren't politically engaged at all. And some people don't even get interested into politics until it's right before the election. That's the general election. Bernie Sanders went across the whole country, not just the swing states, and got a lot of energy and support from the youth, but then told them to go ahead and support Hillary after they cheated them. So there goes that. And that was during an election. But Charlie Kirk and Turning Point, they were going across the country doing this when it was not election season. You ain't got to like them, but they did something right. Now, why don't they do that? Why don't Democrats do that? Why don't they go to these campuses and try to get these kids? Why are they not doing that? Here's why. It's the ratchet effect. This is why Democrats fail. How you are being duped by the fake two-party system. Let me show you something. Republicans turn everything to the right. We know that. The part that a lot of people don't know and pay attention to is that Democrats block movement back to the left. Do you see how they're blocking it? This is the Democrats right here. What I'm trying to explain to you is this. The Democratic Party would rather lose to the Republican Party. They'd rather lose to Trump, lose to MAGA, than actually adopt a populist message that they actually plan to deliver on. Because you know who doesn't want that? Their donors. corporations, Wall Street, the military industrial complex. So they would rather lose than actually deliver something to the American people. This is the problem. This is why Kamala Harris was a little shaky when she's like, oh yeah, I endorse Zoran, but there are other people out there running. This is why they all ganged up on Bernie Sanders. Eric, can we go to the next one for Type VNC? Deep dive here we're doing, folks. This is why they all ganged up on it. Now, and I showed you how Hakeem was, right? This just proves my point. Why they would rather let it go to the right than actually embrace something on the left. Listen to this.
Or have you led that you are most proud of, or that you seek to sort of emulate on a day-to-day basis?
Well, House and Senate Democrats stood shoulder to shoulder together in strong opposition, in fact, in unified opposition to the one big ugly bill.
Or have you?
Did everybody hear that? So again, they will even come together for something that the guy who they said was Hitler, Donald Trump, wants. Then they will come together for something that the real left wants. And if you haven't heard this, if you're new to this channel, you've never heard this before, the Democratic Party is not left. What you have are two right-wing parties. And both of those parties maintain their power in that space. And both of them prevent people from actually going to the left. The Democratic Party, Hakeem Jeffries won't even endorse Zoran Mandami. And look, I got my critiques of Zoran because he's wavering on some things. But they won't even endorse the nominee. They fight harder against people in their own party who are to the real left than they do against Donald Trump. I'm not making it up. It's all in front of you. These are the things that we failed to see. Even Bernie Sanders explained it so well, why people vote for Donald Trump.
So many people who are less well off in your country voted and will probably vote again for Donald Trump.
I'll tell you exactly why. Because they're looking at the government, they're looking at the Democratic Party and saying, I can't afford health care. My kid can't afford to go to college. Everything being equal, my daughter is going to have a lower standard of living than I do. What are you doing for me? You're not doing really much. Trump is coming along. He is an atypical politician. He wants to get rid of all of that stuff. Why not? Maybe I think he's a little crazy. Maybe I don't agree with him on this, but at least not part of the old-fashioned political establishment. So that has an appeal. Bottom line here is the way to beat Trump is to say, yeah, you want change? We're going to give you change. But it's not based on racism. It's not based on xenophobia. It's a change that says we're going to create an economy for you, not just for billionaires.
Bernie Sanders understands exactly why some of the people that voted for him turned around and voted for Donald Trump. He understands exactly why Donald Trump won in 2024. Now, I take you back to 2016 because he's part to blame for this as well. For him to win the states that he won, and for the DNC, the super delegates, to give those states to Hillary Clinton. This is also why the Democratic Party has failed. You rigged the game. Just a reminder here, 2016.
This is Ray Mossholder. Bernie Sanders blew Hillary Clinton off 3 state maps tonight. Democrat caucuses in Alaska, Hawaii, and Washington state voted Bernie all the way. Just listen to these numbers. Alaska, Sanders, 81.6%. Clinton, 18.4%. Hawaii, Sanders, 70.6%. Clinton, 29.2%. Washington State, Sanders, 72.7%. Clinton, 27.1%. Now, Bernie's prediction a week ago was that since Hillary was no longer getting enough Southern black votes, he was going to win the victories in future states. And he is having the time of his life.
And unfortunately, the superdelegates took that away. Because you see, the Republican Party doesn't have to deal with superdelegates in a primary. I remember there were a number of us, we sat there and we watched them take states from that Bernie won. Like Bernie won every county in West Virginia. Superdelegate says at the DNC, we're giving it to Hillary Clinton. This is why the Democratic Party fails. The people had spoken during the primary, but they would rather have Hillary Clinton be the nominee for the party because she represents the interests of Wall Street. That's who the donors like. That's who the military industrial complex likes. I don't think she ever saw a war that she didn't like. That's who they like. That's who they want. And that ultimately led us down the path that we are in now. They would rather push Hillary, have her lose to Donald Trump, than actually play the game fair and let Bernie become the nominee, and who knows where it would have gone from there. And all this time, you see this finger pointing here of, shout out to Power to the People. Look, it's a communist dictator from both sides. You're the dictator. You're the dictator. You're the communist. You're the economist. They both work for the dictatorship of capital. But both parties use the word communist because they know that that's a scary word. Let's call them a communist. That's scary. Let's call them a socialist. That's scary. I think they're starting to realize socialist isn't as scary anymore now. That's why you hear them using communist so much more now. They both work for capital. AIPAC, Israel, Lockheed Martin, Goldman Sachs. That's who they both work for. They can't figure out other ways to get that support back. Now, the Democratic Party is looking around and they don't understand. Donald Trump is in the White House, but for some reason, the Democratic Party is not increasing in the polls. They're looking around, they're losing their minds, and they're like, how did we get here? We don't get it. Donald Trump is sinking in the polls, but then at the same time, we're not increasing. What are we doing wrong? It is a different age. It's a different generation. And these young kids today have woken up. People are paying attention. People are starting to see that you guys just run on not being Donald Trump. You guys don't offer us anything. You just tell us you're not that guy. And meanwhile, we are still struggling. We are trying to buy homes, but we can't. But you got 2 mansions. Now, you know, people are waking up because you start to see just even recently, this takes us back to Obama. Barack Obama is not being treated the way that he used to. Barack Obama is being confronted more and more.
Sir,
Please.
sir, I'm not the president of the United States currently. So there's no point in shouting at me.
That was someone screaming about Gaza, about Palestine, right? So, how things have changed. Barack Obama was used to getting applauded as soon as he walks into a room, and now he walks into a room to speak and somebody's going to shout against him. That was not the way that it used to be. But people have woken up. And no, Barack Obama, you are not the president. But when you were president, you did bomb a hell of a lot of brown people. You did. You also had a lot of deportations. And you see, Barack Obama and them, they pretend as though these things don't exist. Now, let's keep in mind, Barack Obama has 2 young daughters, young adult women. You think that his daughters didn't say anything to him about Gaza? You think these young women in their 20s didn't say anything to their father about what's happening in Gaza? People are waking up. The Democratic Party, the Democrat leadership, they don't like that. People are waking up so much to see that Kamala Harris on this book tour, she can't get through it without somebody yelling something like this.
Your legacy is genocide. The blood of the Palestinians is on your hands. You pledged your full support for Israel while they shot babies, while they blew babies up, while they burned Palestinians alive. Your legacy is genocide. You care more about protecting an apartheid state than defending the rights of Americans. Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Because you see, next, Kamala Harris was supposed to take that mantle. She was supposed to be the next black face in a high place. And she was supposed to go on to be like the next Obama, the female version of Obama, but that didn't happen. And she don't know what to do with herself. And you see the way that people are approaching her, because as a part of the Democratic Party, you were supposed to stand for something different. You're supposed to stand for the working class people. You're supposed to be better on the social issues, especially social issues that affect marginalized communities. But when you let a genocide happen under your administration, and you lie to the American people, which has been revealed in your book with your own words, that you knew since July of 2024 that Benjamin Netanyahu did not want to end this war, yet you went around this campaign trail on this in this country telling people these lies of tirelessly ceasefires. You knew, but you continued to play the game. So the Democratic Party is in trouble, because the black face in high place doesn't work anymore. They're trying to find someone else to fill that spot. They thought it would be Kamala. It did not work. They think it's Hakeem. People don't like him either. His polling is really bad. People want him out of there. Now they're trying to push a Wes Moore, whoever the hell he's really supposed to be. But then he turns around and he blocks the reparations bill in his own damn state. That don't look too good. They are struggling. They would rather lose. They would rather lose than actually do what the party used to do. The party that said, let's do Social Security, let's do Medicare. And don't get it twisted. Everybody likes to praise FDR. You need to remember, FDR didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to help the people. The people rose up against him. He was pressured to do so. The people turned on him. That's why you got Social Security. That's why you got Medicaid. That's why you got the New Deal. Even though even the New Deal blocked out black people in many of those policies. They refuse to accept it, and you can see it here.
62% of the Democrats want to see the leadership of your party replaced. Do these sorts of polls make you rethink your approach at all? How do you view this?
Look at these numbers. 62% say the Democrat should replace the leaders of the party. 62% want the leaders replaced. Hakeem Jeffries is one of the leaders. He was supposed to be a star. Him and Cory Booker and fake ass Richie Torres, they were chosen and selected by the Zionists, by AIPAC, to go out there and be number one champions for Israel while having a brown face to show to everybody in the black community. So you think somebody's in there for you. Same thing with the Congressional Black Caucus. They are Israel first. this is a bad look. This is not just against Chuck Schumer. Hakeem is leadership in the House for the Democratic Party. That's against him too. Listen to what he says.
Approach at all? How do you view this?
Well, I think I understand why people all across the country, not just Democrats, are disturbed by what has been happening in this country and the extremism that has been unleashed on the American people. And we are in what I have referred to often as a more is more environment. We just have to continue to do more, to aggressively push back against the Trump administration and push back in a manner consistent with American values. More town hall meetings, more protests, more demonstrations, more speeches on the House floor, more speeches on the Senate floor, more hearings that are led by Democrats on the Hill, off the Hill, of course, more site visits throughout the country, standing up in defense of the American people, standing up in defense of law-abiding immigrant communities, standing up in defense of those who are vulnerable, pushing back against the rise of extremism in this country and the targeting of communities of color. We're in a more is more environment, and we have to continue to do more. What I will say is that in special election after special election after special election, we keep winning all over the country. Democrats are turning out in record numbers, and we're defeating Republicans across the land.
They have a problem with your leadership, Hakeem. Hakeem thinks fighting back is just continue the demonstrations, more speeches on the House floor. Because when Hakeem Jeffries talks about stopping the extremism, he's not just talking about extremism on the right. He's also talking about extremism on the left. That's why they fight harder against people to their left than they do against people to their right. That's why he can go along with Donald Trump's spending bill, because they both protect the status quo. Also, AIPAC kind of pushing him along the way too. The Democratic Party, in short, has failed because the black faces in high spaces no longer works anymore. And two, the Democratic Party never gave a Democrat response to the Charlie Kirk factor. They never did it. They don't care. They don't care about the youth vote. It's funny, that same youth vote helped Donald Trump win in 2024. He gained youth support. So apparently what Charlie Kirk was doing was working. And three, the Democratic Party doesn't actually want to do anything for the people. And that is why you don't see them fighting. That's why. Because in order to fight Donald Trump, you have to fight him with populism. You have to fight him with delivering for the working class people. And the Democratic Party isn't actually going to do that. So they pretend to fight Donald Trump by writing these long ass letters that nobody's going to read, including me, but actively working behind the scenes to stop people who are to their left. Two things can be true at the same time. It can be true that Biden stayed in the race too long. I agree that I think that's an issue. Kamala didn't have a lot of time. I agree with that. I also think she was a bad candidate. But it can also be true that the Democratic Party would rather run to the right than embrace a left populist movement because their donors don't want it, Israel doesn't want it, and the military industrial complex doesn't run it. You basically have two right-wing parties. Stop letting people tell you that the Democratic Party is left. It's not. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.